Welcome to the Couple Money Podcast. If you're looking to become financially free together, this is your show. Here's your host, Elle Martinez.
As parents, we want to help our daughters to grow up and become responsible, happy, and generous adults. And one part of doing that is teaching them about money. This summer, we began giving our oldest daughter an allowance. And so far, we've had some great wins. She saved up for a couple months to buy an Easy Bake Oven, and she got it on sale. And we've had some teachable moments too. At one point, she was so frustrated with how long it was taking, she asked me if she could use her money to buy more money. I've talked about kids and allowances a couple times on this podcast, but today we want to look beyond that. We want to start looking at helping your kids develop good money habits. Today's special guest is Bill Dwight. Like many parents, Bill has learned on the job. Unlike most parents, though, he's taken his personal experience, his technical expertise, and has created a system to help families prepare their kids to be wiser with their money. On the show today, we're going to be talking about how you can make allowances meaningful, why you don't necessarily need cash to teach kids about money, and how you can start the conversations when they're little and continue as they grow up. When you mention kids and money, the first thing people usually think of is an allowance. And once you get into that topic, there are so many questions. Should kids have them? And if so, should they be tied to chores? When you pay an allowance, how much is appropriate? If you just search for info on kids and money, you'll see there are so many considerations, ideas, and opinions about allowances and how they can help or harm your kids' financial well-being. There are so many questions to be answered, and it can be overwhelming. One approach, though, is maybe just take a step back and think of allowances not as the solution, but rather simply a tool in your box as you help build good habits with your kids.
I think that money and an allowance is simply an extension of people's money values, that money values really vary from family to family, and what makes sense in one family might not make sense in another family. But the critical thing in my mind is simply that the dialogue is happening between the parents and the kids in a way that's aligned with their own personal values, and that the kids are getting lots of hands-on practice. And so to me, what the source of the money is, it's not something I'm super opinionated about. I have a favorite model, which is that I feel that you can do a hybrid where, for example, there's a classic debate of, do I link it to chores? And my favorite model is you have some unpaid chores so that kids realize there's some things that they do that are just part of being a family and they're just expected. And then you offer up some odd jobs that are paid so they can get maybe a little extra income. And that makes a linkage between work and money. And I think that's an important concept too. So I'm kind of on both ends of the spectrum of that. I don't think it has to be an either or kind of scenario.
Another consideration when creating this system is look at your kids' age and maturity. If you have more than one child, you know how different each one can be. What works for one might not be the right method for the other one.
It also is hugely dependent on age, right?
Yes.
Because I think when kids are little, very little, like the idea of getting a quarter for helping mom or dad load the dishwasher, I'm totally down with that. I think that's awesome. If they're teenagers, I'm not so down with that. It's like, dude, take care of the dishes now.
Yeah.
So the context is so important.
If you're looking at setting up a plan for your family, Bill has some tips that can help remove some of that hassle, give your kids real life practice with finances, and encourage conversations between everyone. And of course, it starts with you.
One of the favorite tips I have is to have is for the parent to be sort of the banker, the parent or parents to be sort of the bankers in the family. And one of my favorite things is to have a bank of mom or dad loan for a big ticket item. And for example, laptop computers are very expensive, computers in general. So that's a perfect item, I think, to teach your kid about the concept of a loan, because they typically don't have enough money hanging around to purchase that. And normally I would want them to save for that over a period of time, but sometimes, school hits and you might need the device. But I think this is a perfect learning opportunity.
Another practical tip, ownership. Have your kids put something in. This is a lesson Bill personally picked up as a parent.
My oldest son is a musician. He's a drummer. And his music teacher was saying, it would be really awesome for him to have GarageBand on a laptop so he can make his own recording. And of course, I wanted to support that because it's very creative and so forth. Mm-hmm. So I foolishly ran out and got him this Mac laptop. Now,
nice.
My oldest son is an extremely high energy child. We'll use that euphemism. Mm-hmm. He was into all kinds of extreme biking and sports and things like that. So he wasn't the most gentle with this laptop, shall we say. And in a relatively short period of time, this thing was thrashed. And I was absolutely furious. At first, I was furious at myself. I was like, how could I be so stupid to just sort of, gift him this thing, basically? Because he had no skin in the game. He had no shared skin in the game. And I think that ownership and skin in the game is everything. And that was a great lesson for me and for him.
Now, armed with that knowledge, Bill took a different approach for the replacement.
So when he said, my drum teacher says I need another laptop, I was like, are you kidding me? You didn't take care of that first one. But here's what we'll do. I'll make you a loan. And we're going to garnish your wages to pay that loan back so that you're paying, every week you're seeing that money going out, and that's money that's not around for, going to the movies or pizza or whatever. And so it dawned on me that that's a very instructive exercise for a number of reasons. One is they learn that loans cost money, mm-hmm. That they're expensive, and that it's a bummer to be seeing, a third of your paycheck going out week in, week out to pay off a loan. Everything's sort of accelerated for kids, right? So you typically do it on a faster time frame. And so that was a great example of a big mistake I made, I believe, with my son, but I was able to recover reasonably quickly. And then we both learned a lot of things. And that laptop, that second one, lasted forever.
Before they're mature enough to get a loan from you, though, kids need to get an understanding of how money works. Growing up, I received my allowance in cash, spent, saved, and gave in cash too. While my parents paid with checks, you remember those? They still used cash for things as well. Nowadays, though, most of our transactions are on cards or online. So how do you help your kids get the concepts about money and how it works while preparing them for day-to-day living?
The neat thing about a prepaid card is the balance on the card is what you can spend. That's it. And you spend it and boom, your balance goes down. The confusing thing for a lot of people, whether they're kids or adults, is this whole delay between in a credit card when I bought something and then the bill really comes due. And that's where a lot of trouble can sneak in, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's why I love, I'm not anti-credit card, but I love the idea of prepaid cards as a super simple budgeting mechanism for especially discretionary expenses.
I have to admit, when I heard FAMZoo's system can include debit cards, there's also an IOU version, I was a bit skeptical. After all, I've seen from my own personal experience and with others how easy it is to overspend with a card.
Yeah, so many people talk about how crucial they believe it is that kids learn personal finance with cash because, study after study has shown that clearly you feel it more when you're pulling cash out of your wallet or your piggy bank or your purse or whatnot. You definitely feel that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the conundrum is, but wait a minute, what world are our kids going to grow up in? And the reality is they're growing up in an increasingly online electronic payment world. And so the challenge that I felt I had was, how do I make it painful for a kid to pay electronically? And so one of our best features on our prepaid cards is as soon as you pay, you get an immediate text message that tells you that you just bought something and here's your remaining balance. Because we want kids to know this card thing, this pay online with iTunes or whatever you're doing, that hits your bottom line and your number just went down. And so I think it's really important for kids to understand as early as possible how to manage money as a number. And a lot of adults worry, oh, that's abstract, my kid's not going to get it. You know what? They get it like really quick. Kids are like incredibly smart. I mean, look at them on your tablet or laptop or device. I mean,
Yeah.
they get things that we don't get. And I think it's just one of those things where it's just a matter of explaining it to them and practice and reinforcement. And, I think it's just really wonderful to have them experience all of these things, whether it's what a loan's all about or that how to pay with a card, how to protect your information on a card, that a card balance is a real balance, that's my real money, that my sort of net worth is a combination of maybe cash I have in my wallet or my piggy bank plus the stuff that's in these online accounts. So I think that kids can be socialized to the concept of money as a number and an online thing quite easily if we just take a little time and a little practice.
Setting aside time for these regular conversations might seem difficult with all that we have on our plates. However, with some automation, you can remove some of the hassle without sacrificing these important conversations.
And so parents are insanely busy, and so automation can help just prompt those conversations. Because I tell you, as a father of 5 now on my 5th teenager, you turn around one day and they're taller than you. And it's like, oh, I was going to have all those conversations about life skills. And, 10 years just got behind me. It sounds funny and it sounds absurd to a brand new parent who's still trying to get sleep or something. But those years just fly by. And so if you can have kind of a system or an automated framework, however you do it, you could just set reminders for yourself. That's helpful because it kind of keeps the conversation perking along. And when you go 2 weeks where you're just incredibly busy, the system is still running sort of behind in the background and is there for you to pick up again and have those conversations. So some people might say, oh, really? You're automating allowance and chores? What, is that so you can't talk to your kid at all about money? It's like, no, actually, it's quite the converse. It's so I'm reminded to have those little everyday conversations.
That's one reason why we signed up with FamZoo. Long story short, this year has kept us busy. Having a system in place to keep track of the numbers and goals allowed us to get more out of our chats with our preschooler. We log in and talk about her progress towards her BB-8 droid or her Easy Bake Oven. And that works for us, which may or may not work for you.
Well, that's what I like about automating it, however you choose to kind of automate it. In fact, I wrote a post recently that has a Google spreadsheet template that people can download if they're not ready for a prepaid card or they want something that's totally free and they're comfortable with spreadsheets. But just the concept of automating as much as you can around this and exposing your kids to the concept of what an account is and what a transaction ledger is very valuable, right? Because right there you're teaching them just the simple concept of I check my balance before I purchase something and I track what I spend. In the simplest case, just take a simple spending account, single account. That's a neat set of important concepts that you're teaching your kid just to check that balance, check that history. It's funny how you can get amnesia about what you spent, right?
Yes.
And so it's very, very helpful for them to look back and say, oh, gosh, I bought that pack of gum at the store, and that set me back towards my goal to get that Star Wars robot.
Yes.
Which I know is a goal in your family.
Yes, we're still
and
talking
just
about
have
that.
kids be more reflective and mindful. That record.
One final tip is to remember that it's okay to change things up. As you design your system, think about your kids, their particular needs, their individual strengths. You can usually figure out a practical path that works for everyone. You might not get it right the first time, but don't quit.
One thing that we talked about a little bit is, do I pay for chores or not? The whole linkage of chores and allowance.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a really, if you want to go to a cocktail party and really get people riled up, just toss that question in the mix. And so that one always kind of surprises me a little bit. And I've come to feel that it's not an either or proposition. I mean, why not do both? Because the classic objection to paying kids for chores is that then they'll want to be paid for everything, right? And then the classic objection to just paying a straight allowance not tied to chores is, well, where's a kid going to link work and money? How are you going to teach your kid to be industrious? And so the reality is you can do both. You can have a set of everyday chores that are just expected. You're doing that because you're part of the family. And you can have a set of extra jobs that are an opportunity to make extra money through industrious behavior. So, I think people just kind of have to open their minds to, hey, it's not an either or.
Thanks again to Bill for being a part of this show. Check out FamZoo. It's an awesome service. We have an account with them to help us out with our little one, and we love it. It's super simple to start, and you can design it around your family's needs. Please join us next episode when we step away from the kids and we focus in on you. If you're trying to find the best financial advisor for yourself, you'll want to listen to this episode. Guidevine CEO Raghav Sharma is going to be on the show to help us out. His company has been described as the match.com for your portfolio. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast so you'll get that episode and all others as soon as they're released. It's free and easy. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. You can also leave a review of the show on any of those sites. I'd love to hear what you think, and it would help to get the word out on the podcast. The feed is also available on couplemoneypodcast.com, so you can grab it on whatever service you prefer. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.